very good afternoon to you all and welcome to the very first webinar in celebration of Ferrovial's month of diversity. So why are we celebrating diversity throughout the month of May? We're tying in with the European Diversity Month, which is celebrated across 26 countries in the EU to promote diversity and inclusion in companies, institutions, non-governmental organisations and civil society in general. Now in its second year, the theme is building bridges, and that couldn't be a better fit for us as an organisation or for what we are looking to achieve. There are a number of excellent initiatives throughout the month, all based around a weekly theme, from diversity and competitiveness to gender diversity to inclusive culture, and then in our fourth week to cultural diversity, which brings me to today and the theme for this week: how diversity and inclusion management makes us more profitable, competitive and sustainable as a company. And so without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our Ferrovial guests today: Alejandro Serrano, Director of Talent and Engagement, Monica Coffey, Head of Compliance for North America, and Silvia Ruiz, Chief of Investor Relations. We'll be discussing some fascinating points related to diversity and the competitive edge it gives us as a business. So much to cover in a short period of time. Most certainly you will have questions that you would like to pose. Please use the Q&A box for this in the top right corner. And once we finish the webinar, we will create a roundup of all of them and we will share the responses with you all. So, Alejandro, I'd like to congratulate you first of all on the month of diversity. It's such an important step for us for a number of reasons. And diversity is increasingly becoming a strategic axis of our company. Why is inclusion and diversity management important for Ferrovial?
Thank you, Laura. Well, let me start by explaining briefly what these two concepts, diversity and inclusion, are, in order to introduce why they matter to us. First, when we talk about diversity, we refer to the ability to bring to our workforce the widest possible range of qualities and characteristics that makes us different. It includes not only visible factors like gender, age, or ethnicity, but also invisible factors like cultural background, beliefs, or experiences. On the other hand, when we talk about inclusion, we refer to our capacity to create an environment where each person working for us feel comfortable and can reach their full performance and potential, no matter where they come from, how they look like, or what their beliefs are. Both of these concepts are key, as you can imagine, in order to create the right diversity and inclusion strategy. So as I was saying earlier, it is important that we have a wide diversity, but it is even more important to make sure that this diversity counts through inclusion policies. In Ferrovial, we have a community composed of 36% of women with 5 coexisting generations and over 100 nationalities. We are proud of our already diverse culture, but we have higher standards and we want to continue to thrive in this sense and position Ferrovial as a reference company in diversity and inclusion management. So, Laura, going back to your question, why is diversity management important for Ferrovial? First, because it is a moral imperative. The world is diverse, and our company must reflect the world in which we operate and the communities we work with in order to have a positive impact. Second, because having different profiles provides us with a wide range of skills, approaches, and points of view, and also fosters our innovative capacity, our capacity to take risks, and at the end of the day, it allows us to be more competitive, profitable, and sustainable. And it's not me saying this. There is an increasing number of research supporting this with data, like McKinsey's and BCG's reports. And well, the third reason is because when we facilitate people in our companies to be themselves and perform at their peak with their unique characteristics, the company thrives with them. And we become more valuable and attractive, not only for our potential employees, but also for our clients and investors. So in summary, we believe in diversity as a key lever for talent and organizational development.
Thank you. Monica, we see that diversity management is key, and diversity and compliance are seen as independent concepts, but the relationship between them is closer than we imagine. According to Alejandro's comments, could you detail what is the relationship between both concepts?
Sure. Actually, I see diversity and compliance being very linked. I think in order to answer the question, we first need to talk about what do we really mean by compliance? And in this sense, in general, compliance is a willingness and a commitment from us as a company to comply with our highest ethical standards. And in order to understand what those standards look like from Ferrovial's perspective, we can look to one particular document, which is our corporate code of ethics. And if we look in the code, we see that there are three key principles there: ethical integrity, respect for the law, and respect for human rights. And those three key principles are actually very aligned with diversity. I really see diversity as honoring various and different voices in a single setting. And ethical integrity, which is essentially a commitment to do what is right, directly aligns with the idea of diversity and ethical integrity. That is really the idea of what we should do as a company. We should honor these various voices because, as Alejandro has explained, it only helps to serve us as a company and to improve our overall environment. The next two principles relate more to the decisions we make about how we will conduct business and what we also will not do. So respect for the law means that we will uphold laws regarding discrimination, and we will not discriminate against any member of our community. Respect for human rights means that we will uphold basic human rights in the way that we conduct business at Ferrovial. Putting that all together, upholding distinct and various voices and honoring them, vowing not to discriminate, and vowing to always respect human rights means that promoting diversity, just like promoting health and safety, or just like promoting sustainability, is one of the core values that we hold at Ferrovial and is in line with our overall compliance program, which is designed to help us maintain and uphold the highest ethical standards in the way that we do business here at Ferrovial.
Thank you, Monica. Sylvia, so according to Monica and Alejandro, diversity and inclusion are closely related to business. How do diversity policies really impact our business? Is it a relevant point from the investor's perspective?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, I would say because it's important here to remind that the diversity, we are talking a lot about ESG, and diversity is part of ESG, right? So diversity is included in the S, so it's environmental, social, and governance. And ESG is becoming absolutely key for investors who are deciding type of companies in which they want to invest money, right? Actually, at the beginning, I think people tend to think that ESG is related with the E, but S is also key. And for example, we have been seeing in the latest months many investors asking us and requiring specific calls to talk about these matters. And for example, when preparing the annual general meeting, the Ferrovial annual general meeting that took place in April, we have been seeing investors and key investors for the company being really active when promoting companies that have diversity policies and asking about what we are doing in this matter. So, of course, this is absolutely key for investors' perspective.
Thank you. Alejandro, so seeing how relevant diversity and inclusion are for the business, as we've heard so far, could you please comment on what the company is doing regarding this?
Yes, of course. Well, for the first time, Ferrovial has a global strategy with diversity objectives, KPIs, and an action plan to achieve them. This strategy revolves around three axes that are essential to achieve our diversity goals. So I will go through the three of them very quickly. The first one is related with having more diverse talent. As I said before, we want to position Ferrovial as a reference employer for all kinds of people, and we want to hire professionals that bring to the table diverse profiles in different dimensions. So this is the first axis, and some examples of goals related to this axis are increasing the percentage of women hired at all levels in order to close the gap between our current proportion between men and women and that proportion that exists in the markets where we operate for the positions that we plan to hire in the future. Also, we want to foster local talent, and accordingly, we've set a goal to hire 100% of local talent for positions with less of 3 years of experience. Okay, then our second axis is to develop diversity. We want to ensure that diversity is present at all levels of the organizations, and that equal opportunities are provided to all our employees. So in that line, we want to foster the development of diverse profiles, no matter their positions or their role in the company. In line with this axis, we've set ambitious goals to increase the percentage of women and local talent in our company's leadership team. And the third axis is to value diversity. We want to raise awareness in the organization on diversity by promoting and communicating initiatives that helps us generating a shared mindset around diversity, among others, to foster the creation of inclusive workplaces, as I explained before. So in this line, some examples of actions that we've already put in place and we will continue to do in the future, of course, are well, the organization of this Diversity Month is one of the actions related with this third axis. We've also created in the Ferrovial Corporate Learning Center a diversity section with over 100 learning contexts for all our employees to have access, and it goes around all types of diversity. And also, well, we've reached agreements with public and private institutions in order to promote diversity and inclusion within Ferrovial, and also to act as ambassadors of diversity and inclusion outside the company.
Thank you very much. I think we're all good that we're all able to appreciate firsthand from you what the company's commitment is here. Monica, from your point of view as head of compliance and in the context of the American market with very high standards in this area, how do you perceive our position as a company?
Sure, thank you. I think Ferrovial is actually very well positioned in this area. And like a lot of companies, as Sylvia has said, and as Alejandro just described, there is a process that many companies are undergoing in order to evolve in this area. And I think with respect to any core value that we have, diversity included, there's kind of a process that the company will want to undergo to ensure that it achieves the highest standards possible in this area. The first step is really a commitment from the top. I think it's important that both internal and external stakeholders understand that diversity is very important to the company as a whole. And we heard at the annual conference our CEO and chairman say very clearly that diversity is one of the key values of the company and one of the key initiatives of the company this year and in the coming years. So that statement from the top is very critical. The next step that's important is to reflect the position in writing. It's important to be clear about what the company's position is. So that can come in the form of a policy, it can come in the form of a procedure, it can be written on the company's website, or the 3 axes that Alejandro discussed. It could be in the training portion of Ferronet, for example, but it's important that people be able to understand what the company's position is with respect to this area. The third area is awareness, and Alejandro just spoke a lot about that. This session is designed, of course, to raise awareness amongst those who view it about how we see diversity, the importance of diversity, and what Ferrovial is doing with respect to that. And I think a final important last step would be monitoring. Anytime you create a program, you want to continuously monitor that program so that you can identify areas that have worked well in the implementation and perhaps areas where you need to update something or where it may need more attention. And it's a continuous process that will continue to evolve as time goes forward. But I think Ferrovial, having created this framework, raising awareness among employees, is very well positioned in this regard and will continue to be so.
Thank you. So Sylvia, coming back to the investor side of things and back to the impact of diversity in business, how do you think we are seen from the prism of investors?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say that as of today, we don't have a problem there. So I think that the market really recognizes all the measures that we are doing and all the things that Alejandro and Monica were describing before. But I always like to say that we shouldn't be relaxed because of that, because this is advancing so fast. I mean, I have seen all the ESG matters advancing so fast that this could change. So for me, it's key to keep working. We should be able to differentiate ourselves when compared to other competitors, because at the end of the day, investors should, when deciding, this is becoming key when deciding in which company invest. So we should differentiate ourselves. And I'd like to highlight also that when talking about diversity, I mean, investors really recognizes the value that diversity adds to the management of the company, but not only talking about gender. It's important here that talking about diversity is more race, countries, different skills, different backgrounds. So all these different differentiation that, of course, reflects society today really adds value to the management of the company, and investors in general are there, right? So I wouldn't say we have a problem today, but keep going because this is advancing very fast.
Thank you, Sylvia. So picking up on the key point there, that the investor's view of our D&I management is perfectly fine for the moment. There is no issue there. But as we all know, our global view of everything, things are moving on such a fascinating scale. The speed is immense. And if we don't keep moving as well, particularly in the area of D&I, then our situation could be quite different. So Monica, if I could come to you, going back to compliance, from your perspective, do you think that the landscape is going to evolve, requiring us to have a higher standard in these matters? And also, if I could add to that, do you think that our positioning as a company with D&I management is helping us to anticipate these possible changes?
We think, as Sylvia mentioned, that this is an area that will continue to evolve. I think we saw a good example of this with respect to ESG in general, in particular environmental issues and sustainability issues. You know, if you think back, there was a time when environmental issues just did not matter. Unless you were in a particular industry with waste concerns or waste management concerns, where there was kind of a direct impact on your bottom line, the typical business was not concerned at all with environmental issues. And then it became more of an issue that was of concern to particular members of the community. And then next, it became important to investors. As there was more kind of demand and interest from the community, then investors started looking at this issue and said, we would like to know what you're doing on environmental matters, and it doesn't matter that you're not an industrial company. We want to know, how are you lowering your carbon footprint? How are you reducing your waste, etc. And then now we see that there may even be, there's proposed legislation here in the US to have across the board quantifiable information that every publicly traded company will have to provide. And so there has been a real evolution, and I think that we will see something similar with respect to matters of diversity and inclusion. I think Ferrovial's having diversity and inclusion management puts us in a very good position to be able to continue to evolve as the requirements continue and the demands continue to evolve on companies globally. But certainly this is something that we will want to be proactive about. We will want to be ahead of the curve rather than having to catch up in any particular way.
Thank you, Monica. As we can see, the impact of regulation is important, and we've already seen what Ferrovial is doing in this regard and its positioning on this issue specifically. So Sylvia, looking into the future, if you can, what are the next challenges in this area? And if I could also add to that one, what major challenges do we have to overcome in terms of diversity to be more attractive to our investors?
Well, I would say that probably main challenge is to be able to meet, because we have published as a company a sustainability strategy in our website. And for example, in terms of diversity, we have this objective of having 25% of women in executive positions. So probably main challenge is to keep working on meeting that, right? So because we have settled some objectives, that it's important when looking to our investors and to the market that we are able to meet the goals that we have settled as a company, right? I know that, for example, in this case, there are many things that have been doing, as Alejandro was describing before, but there's still some room for improvement. So for me, the main challenge is that, right, is to meet the goals that we have settled as a company. And for that, it is key to have all the company committed with these policies, right? So it's something that should go from up to down and down to up, and it should be involving the whole company. It's very good news that, as Monica mentioned before, both Rafael and Ignacio talked about this in the last management meeting. So I think that we are in the good path, but there's still some room for improvement. And also, I would say that we have a challenge when communicating all the things that we are doing, because sometimes we are doing things, but we need to communicate them well. And so to make the whole company and our investors to be aware of all the things that we are doing internally. So it's a combination of doing things well, but also communicating them well. But well, I think that we are in the good path.
As a communications person for this company, we'll take on that challenge with you and definitely support as we go through. Key. So thank you. So one last question for Alejandro. Alejandro, taking into account the importance of D&I management in order to keep growing as a company and become more competitive and sustainable, as you've already told us, but I'd like you to share with us the challenges we may face to become a company of reference, to really differentiate ourselves in these terms, in terms of D&I.
Yes, of course. Well, in fact, analyzing the challenges has been key in order to define the right strategy for D&I. And well, for example, I would say that one of the challenges that we found talking about gender diversity is that we are in a sector in which traditionally male professionals have had a higher presence than female professionals. And well, this is the origin of this is that there is a shortage of women in science, technology, and engineering degrees. For instance, depending on the countries, we find that women only make up for 20 to 30% of graduates of these disciplines at university level. And well, this is in this case, we want to tackle the issue from a broad perspective. And among our action plan, we have included volunteering actions targeted to girls and women in school in order to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematical vocations for female and local talent in order to allow us to contribute to have a more diverse profile of this type for the present and of course for the future, to start building a talent pipeline from the base in order to help us to achieve our diversity goals. This, of course, has to be aligned with the internal goals that I mentioned before, and it is important for us to meet because otherwise it would take too long. I'm talking over 30 years to achieve the goals, the long-term goals that we have proposed. So it is important to push through the initiatives that I explained before. And also, I want to add that at this point, it's important to acknowledge that our commitment with our strategy and diversity and inclusion management is very high and as a company. But in order to create a truly inclusive company, we need the support of all employees. And this is why our strategy involves not only HR, not only the leadership, but all the levels and all the professionals at the company. So this is why we encourage everyone to be part of our diversity and inclusion strategy, and especially in this diversity month in which all employees have the opportunity to participate.
That's fantastic, thank you. So to everybody who's attending, so this is for us, this is our challenge. The future looks very interesting and already we're doing so much around this. I would take the pledge to work with the communications team to make sure we're getting that message out there to you guys, but also further afield to our investors, to our clients of the future, and definitely to the talent that we'd like to bring in to this brilliant company. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing from your perspective. So we have asked you for questions. Thank you very much for submitting them. We will do a roundup and share the responses to those now. I'm looking forward to seeing them. But for now, thank you very much, Alejandro. Thank you, Monica, and thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you very much. Thank you.